Hi class, welcome to Illustrator Lab 8. Today we're going to learn how to create some unique limited color palettes in a vector illustration. You are going to kind of learn or relearn the magic wand tool, the eyedropper tool, the recolor tool, and we're going to talk about the blending mode color and how we're going to use it to check value. The file you're going to need is Space Unicorn, and when you're ready, go ahead and launch that. All right, this is in a couple parts. We have part 1, which is monochromatic, part 2, dichromatic, part 3, trichromatic, and part 4, value check. All right, so we have an illustration for each of these parts, and we have layers for all of these. I want you to begin by locking layers C through H so we don't manipulate those by accident before we're ready to get to them, because we're going to zoom in up here at the top. All right, so Space Unicorn is an original character by Perry Grip, who's an online YouTube entertainer, does lots of really cute animated videos. You may be familiar with It's Raining Tacos or the Chicken Nugget song. We're going to use Perry Grip's character to kind of model learning about value and color schemes. All right, so in step A, we're going to start by selecting the darkest value with our magic wand. All right, so the magic wand is here on your toolbar, but it's also hotkey Y, and I want you to get used to that Y because we're going to switch between Y and I very often today. All right, with hotkey Y, to notice that this color is also the fill color for all the shadow shapes. So below our illustration are all of the colors used in this little vignette of Space Unicorn, but we're seeing lots more colors visually than are actually down here because we have colors. Let's see, hotkey Y, go ahead and click on the space color. I'm going to zoom in here. You'll notice that even though it's the darkest color, the purpley of the space, it's being used transparently and with blending modes to create the shadows over other parts of the illustration to kind of create that 3D look. All right, so if we were to look at maybe the shadow over this part of the face, it's that purple color, same one that was in our swatches below, but it's on multiply and its opacity is 30%. If I were to click that shadow that's over the back foreleg, it's the same purple multiplied, but at 50%, so it's slightly darker so that we have a deeper shadow over that back leg. All right, so before we move on, be sure to calibrate your magic wand tool by double-clicking its icon on the toolbar and reducing its tolerance to 0. So you're going to double-click on the magic wand and make sure right here where it says fill color, your tolerance is 0. By default, Illustrator will set it at 32 if the program has been restarted. All right, once you've done that, you can go ahead and exit out of that. But the magic wand tool allows you to select any fill color or fill and stroke color, and it will collect that as a selection anywhere in your illustration that is not locked or hidden. All right, so I can go through and find out all the instances of this orange, all the instances of this yellow, and like I said, all the instances of that dark purple, which is also being used for shadows. All right, so in order to go for the next step, we're going to have to choose a warm hue to fill this solid box below. So I'm going to switch to hotkey V to select this box. And from my color picker, I'm going to select like a really warm red orange. You can select another hot color. You can go for pink, you can go for yellow. You're welcome to just do the same thing that I'm doing. All right, now we're going to overlap and rasterize both boxes. We're going to make that into our color guide. So I'm going to select both boxes. Up on my control bar where I have some align options, I'm going to give them both the same vertical alignment so they're overlapping. And now I can't use my eyedropper right now because my eyedropper understands the vector information of the gradient on top. So if I wanted to eyedrop a fill, it's still just going to eyedrop a gradient. So we're going to have to rasterize these so that they become a PNG and no longer carry that vector information of the gradient. So we're going to go Object, Rasterize. So long as it's RGB, I don't care what else all the other settings are. So this is now an object that is a raster object, is pixels, is not vector information anymore. So we don't have a fill or a stroke, etc. And now if I use my eyedropper, I can put in my fill box any color that I can manage to click on inside the box. So we're going to do that now. We're going to use the magic wand tool, Y, and the eyedropper tool, I, to color the above illustration with a warm monochromatic color scheme. Now this is really important, and I don't want you to miss this next note, but remember to hold down Shift while eyedropping to prevent from changing blending modes and transparencies, because that does happen if you don't hold down Shift. So we're going to start by doing our darkest color. So I'm going to go ahead and, using my magic wand tool, select all the instances of that color. Now I'm going to hit I for eyedropper, and I'm going to hold down Shift while I eyedrop a really dark orange color from my little guide here that I made, that I rasterized. All right, now holding down Shift made sure that it did change my shadows to be that color, but it didn't change their blending modes or their opacities. All right, so still multiply in 30, still multiply in 50, etc. So always hold down Shift. All right, next I'm going to change the color of Space Unicorn's body. It also happens to be the color of this cute little planet in the background. All right, so I'm going to hit I for eyedropper, and I want this one to be my brightest orange in the center. So remember to hold down Shift and then select that color. Now I'm going to move my way through the rest of the illustration, choosing instances of color, switching to the eyedropper, and selecting out of my color scheme an appropriate value or color into my illustration. All right, so I'm using some light oranges, some medium oranges, some darker oranges. Maybe I don't want them to be too close to the body color if there's something that touched the body, because I want them to feel like separate items. But at your own pace, go ahead and color this illustration. Now, we're limited because it's a monochromatic color scheme. We can only do anything that's a variation of orange, so either a tint or a shade of that. But you can still color an entire illustration using those. All right, so when you're finished, and all of these colors here are something that you've eyedropped from your little guide, except for perhaps the white, we're going to go to step C. And it says duplicate the objects from layer B into the space below in layer C. Right, so we're going to select all the objects in layer B. We don't need the color guide though. And we're going to hit Control C. We're going to unlock layer C and then select layer C and Control V to paste it. I'm going to just drag those over my guide. All right, now I'm going to lock layer B so that I don't accidentally change anything about it. I'm also going to lock layer A just to be safe. And now on layer C, we're going to use the Recolor Tool to adjust the monochromatic color scheme to be cool. So first we did a hot or a warm color, that orange. Now we're going to do a cold color, so either like a blue or a green or a violet. So we're going to, I'm going to scoot this to the side, click on this icon in our control bar. So right here is the Recolor Tool. All right, using the Advanced and Edit settings, we can unlock and adjust the brightness and saturation of each individual color without changing the hue. So let's go to our advanced options, like it says, and let's go to Edit. Now inside Edit, I can change my hue from a warm color to a cool color. And it will keep all of them locked together. Now, once I have a cool color selected, I might want to change, like it says, the brightness and saturation. So I can unlock all these colors from each other. We'll give it a little unlock. And then I can select individual colors. Let's see, like maybe this lightest blue. And I can increase its saturation or decrease its saturation. And then increase or decrease its brightness using the saturation and brightness sliders. Now I don't want to change the hue because I will change it from my monochromatic scheme, but I can use this to now kind of get a slightly richer variety. So these grays wouldn't have been available in our color scheme because it only showed us our black to white versions of that orange. But now that I have a little bit more control, I can test those out. So let's see, let's go to our, maybe this dark one for the eyes. I can take away some of that brightness, maybe some of that saturation, and get a slightly more rich variation. All right. So go ahead and play with that a little bit, change your illustration around, try some new things. And when you're finished and want to commit all of your changes, go ahead and hit OK. All right, that's it for step C. So we have a warm monochromatic and a cool monochromatic. And by the time we got to the cool one, we got to use Recolor, which allowed us to get a little bit more of our variations in our grays because we could take away saturation and brightness. All right, so I want you to lock layer C, and let's move on to part 2, which are dichromatic color schemes. All right, so in part D, let's go ahead and unlock part D. We are asked to choose 2 analogous hues. So analogous means that they are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to select my gradient here, and then in my gradient window, I'm going to change my color A, my first slider, maybe. Having a little bit of a, there we go. I'm going to change this to be a nice bright purple. Now color B, or my second slider, I'm going to change to be something that's next to that on the color wheel, so it's kind of more of like a purpley blue. All right, so we get all these fun colors between my kind of pink purple and my blue purple. So they're analogous because they're next to each other on the color wheel. And then, like we did earlier, we're going to join this with our black to white gradient, that's what this is, by first giving them the same alignment so that they're overlapping each other, and then going up to our menu from Object and rasterizing it so that it's no longer a vector piece of information, it's a PNG. Okay, so now we get to use our Magic Wand tool and eyedropper to color the above illustration with an analogous dichromatic color scheme. We're going to have so many more colors to choose from. Remember to hold down Shift while eyedropping to prevent from changing blending modes and transparencies. So I like to get ahead of that first by doing my space colors. So I'm going to hit Y for my Magic Wand tool. I'm going to collect all the instances of that darkest color. Then I'm going to switch to my eyedropper, hold down Shift, and choose a dark space color. And I can choose it from either end, maybe my warmer purple or my cooler purple. I think a warmer purple is kind of interesting. Now you're going to have slightly different colors. That's totally fine as long as they're analogous. And then we're going to go through, and just like the last step, we're going to recolor this illustration by using our Magic Wand tool Y and eyedropper I, and experimenting with how we can color Space Unicorn within this kind of limited color palette. Now it's important to kind of limit your color palettes while you're learning because it's really easy to accidentally overdo color in a lot of ways. And this is a really fun way to start that before kind of letting yourself a little loose. Let's see, I like that being a little cooler blue, cooler purple. There's this cute little muzzle. Maybe I'll make that the warmest pink that I can find, which means I want to change some of these other pinks to be a little less warm. Now, I'm not looking to make sure that your pupils are really dark or Space Unicorn is your darkest color or anything. There's no rule necessarily. We will talk about value by the time we get to the bottom, and you may have to make some adjustments to value. But feel free to just see what works for your colors that you chose. All right, so by holding down Shift and clicking around all through here, I can try so many things. Just try to make sure they're all slightly different from each other. And I'm being kind of picky. It's going to take me a minute to figure this one out. Maybe I want a really dark one. Yeah. This will be individual to every illustration, so don't feel like yours has to match. And if you've moved on and you're ready, you can just fast forward until I'm there with you. And if you'd like to get into some of your saturation and brightness settings, you can always click on that Recolor tool and move forward with that as well. All right, so I'm going to leave well enough alone now. I think I like the way that this is looking, my dichromatic analagous color scheme. And we're going to try next complementary hues. So those are analogous, which meant they were next to each other on the color wheel. Complementary means they're going to be opposite on the color wheel. So I'm going to lock layer D, unlock layer E, and change first my little color guide here. So I'm going to choose colors that are opposite on the color wheel. I think I'm going to choose red and the green. All right, so red and green are complementary. They're opposite on the color wheel. Once I have my gradient changed, I'm going to overlap my two objects with my gradient. Might see my black and white gradient, and then go to my drop-down menu from Object and Rasterize. All right, from there, you know what to do. We're going to start using that magic wand tool and our eyedropper to start finding some colors. Maybe this time space is a lighter color-ish. No, I think I'll still keep it dark. I think I need to keep it dark so that my shadows stay dark. But perhaps Space Unicorn this time is a much lighter color. And now, because I have green and red and they are opposite, I have some weird and cool, interesting kind of neutral browns in the middle that I get to eyedrop and use. So not necessarily everything has to be either a version of red or a version of green, but all the fun in-between colors. Now, instead of Space Unicorn being the brightest thing, maybe Space Unicorn's gear gets to be really bright and interesting. So rapid switches between Y for your magic wand tool, and I. Go ahead and play around until you find you've landed on a color scheme that you really enjoy. I'm going to play with a lot more of these neutrals. I really like these neutral colors in between. Oh, perfect. I love this. All right, so when you're finished with your complementary hues, your dichromatic complementary hues, I want you to notice that you could get quite a more visually dynamic illustration than analogous hues. That's because complementary hues are kind of in competition with each other, whereas analogous, they kind of they sit really well. They have a lot of harmony. All right. So depending on the goals of your illustration, you may decide to use analogous color schemes or complementary color schemes. All right, I'm going to lock layer E, and then we're going to move on to part 3, trichromatic color schemes. Now that's going to be slightly different while we build um, our little color guides here. Oh, I better unlock my layer, F. So what my instructions here are telling us is that colors 1 and 4 in my gradient will be the same color in the gradient window. That's because we're going to need all the changes between color 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, but we also need the changes between 3 and 1, which can't stretch over this direction. So we're going to have a copy of color 1 over here. So let's go ahead and choose 3 colors. Remember to choose pretty bright colors because they will get desaturated as they mix with each other, and they will get tints and hues as they receive black and white. But go ahead and choose any 3 colors that you like. I'm doing blue and yellow and some kind of purple. And I'm duplicating my color 1 so that I have again over here for color 4. And then joining my 2 gradients and rasterizing them so that they are no longer vector information, they are raster information. All right, from this first trichromatic scheme, I'm going to start coloring. Now, you're going to do this 3 different times with totally unique different colors. So, they say I wasn't holding down shift and it recolored everything to be opaque. You don't want that. Let's see. I like that teal color. And I'm going to go through now. At this point, you may pause the video or fast forward the video as you kind of play with your 3 different color schemes. You're welcome to watch me do it too. I may not have an explanation for every part of it, but I'm going to use each trichromatic color scheme to fill in color in each of these space unicorn illustrations. And by limiting the amount of colors that I've used and knowing that they're going to be related, I can get a pretty rich illustration out of it. Remember to keep holding down that shift every time you use it. All right, 1 down. Let's try another trichromatic color scheme. On step G. Let's try a red and a blue. And a green. No, I go back on that one. Maybe we'll use a really, really desaturated green. Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to need a duplicate of my red. And if you make a color scheme that you don't like, that's fine. That's also learning. That's also a really good thing to know. All right, I'm going to select my two objects, overlap, and rasterize them. And begin using my magic wand tool hotkey Y. That's an interesting space color. And hotkey I while holding down Shift to select colors. Maybe this time Space Unicorn will be a really light color. I'm holding down Shift and clicking around. You can kind of fish for exactly what you would like. That's an interesting one. Now this color scheme is not necessarily my favorite, but that's good learning for me. I should definitely be trying to figure that out. By the time I got all those colors filled in, I didn't like my space color anymore, so now I'm going to go back and see if I find a better space color. I think that jives just a little bit better. Don't aim to have the same colors as me, it'll just make you frustrated. I want you to have totally different colors. Fan of that purple anymore. Maybe it's because I need some purple somewhere else. So I'm going to select something else that's missing some color, and we'll see if we can get a little bit more related colors in there. Maybe I take that purple color and change it to something else. Okay, I'm going to leave that one alone. My second trichromatic color scheme. All right, my third one. I'm going to have to unlock layer H. I haven't done very many cool colors. Let's try some cool colors. I'll need a duplicate of color 1 as color 4. All right, I'm going to combine and rasterize my objects, and then starting on this final trichromatic color scheme. Again, holding down Shift while I'm eyedropping to prevent from changing my opacities and transparencies in those shadows. This is one where I'm going to try to do a slightly lighter color space. I know it might not work out for the total best, but I want to give it a go. Maybe I make it my most saturated green. All right. And Space Unicorn will be a kind of a darker color on top. Now you'll see that kind of the struggle my illustration is going to have is that the shadows on top of Space Unicorn, they're still that really light color. So it's really hard for them to have a lot of impact as a shadow. It's easier if a shadow is a dark color. So we may end up needing to, on an individual basis, if you do something like this, you may end up needing to actually change your opacities and transparencies. I'm going to do that once I get everything with a little bit of color in it. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I want my darkest color here, the one that I've used in the mane and tail, I want this to be my shadow color. So I'm going to have to select all of my shadow colors by selecting that bright color swatch that I used, and then deselecting space so that the only objects that are selected now are the shadows on the pieces and parts of Space Unicorn. And I'm also going to deselect my swatch. So the only objects are the Space Unicorn. I'm going to hit I for eyedropper. I'm going to hold down Shift, and eyedrop that really dark blue. Now again, by holding down Shift, I'm protecting their individual settings for transparency and their blending modes. So now I can have shadows that are occurring nice and dark, and I can still get away with a fun, interesting kind of twist on the space color being light. So now I can continue working this illustration in ways that feel just a little bit better than when our shadows couldn't affect the object that they were on top of. All right, so when you're finished with your trichromatic color schemes, whatever they ended up being, we're going to move on to part 4, which is called value check. Now I want you to unlock all the layers now. Now we're not necessarily scared of using our Magic Wand tool to select colors that are common between them, because now they're all different. But part 4, called value check, is asking us to turn on the layer called value check. So here's this layer in our layer palette. This layer contains a white rectangle, so that's what the object is. And it covers the entire artboard from the very top of our illustration to the very bottom. All right, now this is a white fill rectangle with a transparency called color. All right, so if I were to duplicate this object over here, that's what it looks like. It's just a white rectangle, and its transparency or its blending mode is called color. All right, now this allows my rectangle to change all the colors beneath it, or to allow us to view the colors beneath it without their actual color information, just with their value information. And so if I turn this on and off, you'll notice it's now covering, since it's above all those objects, it's now covering them or Now we're seeing our true colors. All right, so the point is we want to view our illustrations in grayscale. If the values of our colors are too close, they will blend together and need to be adjusted to have more contrast. So the two examples I have here, this is a red and a blue and a red and a blue. Now if I turn on value check, you'll notice that this red and this blue have the exact same grayscale value. And so parts of that illustration kind of disappear. But these two, this red and blue on the right, have enough contrast that we can see the difference between them. So now you're going to use that information to go up through your illustrations and double check that you have good value contrast. So this illustration has good value contrast. All the pieces and parts of Space Unicorn and its little outfit are easily distinguishable against each other. This illustration is having less good contrast because you'll notice parts of the uniform are almost the same value as parts of the body. So yours are going to be slightly different. You might have different areas since we have different colors that you've eyedropped. And the point of the value check is now to kind of encourage us to then go through and use our Recolor tool to add or subtract saturation and brightness to see if we can get better value contrast. You'll notice like that did not help. That actually made it kind of worse. So I'm going to have to do that again. Even though I can see the difference with my eyes, it's going to struggle to communicate to people with different eyesight. Let's check it now. Better. I can see the difference now between the straps and the body. All right, so I want you to go through now all of your illustrations, and anywhere that two of your colors are really close in value and so you can no longer see the difference between those shapes in your illustration. Again, here it's happening again between the little saddlebag and the star and Space Unicorn's body. I want you to adjust those colors so that they have better value contrast. I'm going to deselect and use my value check. Much better. All right. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and save your file and submit it. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.